Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidate interviews, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I'm your interviewer, Shel Gross, and I would like to introduce Nathan Wagner, running for Circuit Court Judge for Branch 1. As we begin, please give an opening statement about the professional, educational, and civic background you have, which prepares you for this office, and why you are running for Circuit Court Judge.
Thank you. My background is fairly varied. Professionally, in order to be a judge in Wisconsin, you have to have been an attorney in Wisconsin for the prior 5 years. So I have been a Wisconsin attorney. I went to law school in Cleveland at Case Western Reserve, and after law school, I moved to Texas and took the Texas State Bar and opened up a law office there. In addition to being an attorney, and said I was 34 when I went to law school, so I had a slightly different route than a lot of people who've gone to school and then more school for law school, and then they've been an attorney. And before I went to law school and for a while afterwards, I also did computer consulting, programming, and whatnot professionally. And so I have that varied background. I served in the Army for 4 years. And so I think one of the things that makes me qualified and that and one of the reasons that I think I would be good at being a judge is that varied background. I bring more than just the legal experience. And of course, people who are going to be in court generally aren't attorneys. I mean, other than obviously representing people, but the people with actual cases are not legal people. And I think bringing that background makes me qualified, and I like to think in some ways more qualified, because I bring more than just the legal background to both being an attorney, and I think that helps me in my practice, but I would also like to bring that to the judiciary.
Thank you. How will your experience assist you in working with people from different backgrounds who all come before you're in court?
I think that dovetails well with, again, the background that I was just talking about. Certainly, both in the computers that I worked with, that was consulting jobs that were anywhere from, a lot of it in California, as you can imagine, with computers, but Dallas has a large computer presence. I've worked there. Mm-hmm. I worked for a company in New York City. I had about a 7-month contract actually in Calgary, Canada. So, and 4 years in the Army, as you can imagine, you meet people from everywhere that you must get along with, because they're your fellow soldiers. And so I think that I have worked with a lot of people from different backgrounds, and I think that's something that I'm very comfortable with, because either because of temperament or the experience, but either way, that is something that not only that I think I'm good at working with those people, of different backgrounds than myself, but also understanding that people have different backgrounds. I think sometimes it's very easy for people to put on or get blinders about, it's like, oh, it doesn't occur to me that somebody else might have not done or had whatever, background or life that you do. And I've traveled and I think done enough different things that I can easily adapt.
In the arena of criminal law, how do you think about balancing the rights of the accused with the rights of the victim?
I think that the accused, the defendant in a criminal case, has very strong rights, many of which are directly constitutionally protected, and those are paramount. Wisconsin has laws regarding victim rights, and courts do, and in my experience, have always very scrupulously checked that those victim rights, which are mostly rights to be informed about the case, so that, if they were a victim of a crime, whether something is happening to the alleged perpetrator or not, they're at least aware of, rather than sitting in the dark and hoping that, the perpetrator is brought to justice. But that compliance with those rights, it mostly rests on the prosecution. It's really the prosecution's task to make sure that those rights are complied with. Judges, in my experience, invariably at every substantial stage, where something that might really affect the rights of the defendant, there's always a check that the victim rights are also being complied with. The defense attorney will, as part of his or her job, of course, be making sure that the state is being held to the strictest standards with regards to the rights of the defendant. And a judge's job really is to oversee that process, maybe with some checking to make sure that it's done, but the judge doesn't interfere with that process. It's really a shepherding or an oversight, and Wisconsin has, enshrined in its laws certain victim rights, and I believe that those are a good thing. And, again, the judge's job really is just to make sure that they were complied with, but the actual doing of that is the prosecution.
Thank you. What do you see as important and innovative ideas for programs to help with the overtaxed criminal justice system and to avoid recidivism by offenders?
I think in a lot of ways, as a judge, your hands are sort of tied, because what are crimes and what are the penalties for, or at least the severity level, what type of felony or misdemeanor and so forth it is, those are really defined by the legislature. Whether, any particular law that you may wish to think about, whether the judge thinks that should or shouldn't be illegal really isn't something that I think any judge would be bringing to the judiciary. The different sorts of programs, and then there are a number of alternative programs, but the legislature really has to define the eligibility for those. And of course, if you routinely referred people into those programs, you would then be asking me, how do we solve the problem of those overtaxed programs? And so there's really only a certain amount of resources available. You also asked about recidivism, and I don't know that I certainly do not believe that there is any one answer to that, because every person is an individual. Every person's motivation to the first crime, so that they could be a recidivist, and perhaps their motivation to the second crime may well be entirely different. And of course, the motivation of someone that is, poor and can't afford groceries is going to be different than perhaps the motivation of somebody that is addicted to drugs, or the motivation of somebody that just likes stealing cars for the thrill of it, I suppose. I don't quite understand that, but so I don't think you can have any simple answer to that, because every answer has to be tailored to that individual. And unfortunately, perhaps as a judge, you are constrained because you have to operate within the framework that the legislature has done. And so I think a lot of those sorts of changes or reforms to that might help really have to come from the legislature.
How will you ensure that you remain impartial in practice and appearance while serving in this judicial office?
I think the appearance of impartiality is crucial, and I think it's one of the things that's perhaps been lacking. I think there's a great perception that judges are not impartial. And I think that the appearance of that in some ways is maybe not as important as actual impartiality, but if people don't trust that the system is impartial, things will break down eventually. And so I think it's very important to be impartial, but also appear to be. As to your question of how and what I will do to strive for that is I will avoid taking public stands on certainly any hot issues, but really, I don't think a judge should be participating in anything that might call that impartiality into question. I think a judge should try to keep a very low profile, and I think that's something that I will and can do.
What personal values will you bring with you to this office?
I think everyone deserves to be heard for what their individual situation is. I value the rule of law, which perhaps everyone running for a judge will say, but to me what that means, and I guess my values on that are that we have defined rules in which we resolve disputes. And if we get outside of those rules, once we start to break some of them, there isn't necessarily a logical stopping point to that. And so I think, one of the values that I bring is a willingness to see how each individual's case, situation, facts fit, and just try to come up with outcomes that work within that. I'm very good at, I think, looking at maybe the whole situation and really striving to come up with something that works but is still within the framework. I think that's important.
What would you like to say to the viewing audience as we complete this interview?
I would like to say, well, thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to the viewing audience. I would like to say that I think that I would bring some qualities to being a judge that are perhaps broader than many others. And I would like to have the opportunity to bring those to the judiciary, and I hope that the people viewing this agree and vote for me.
I want to thank Nathan for speaking with us and thank the viewing audience for taking the time to know your candidates. I want to remind everyone that the primary election is Tuesday, February 17th, and the general election is Tuesday, April 7th. Every election is important. Please vote. On behalf of Madison City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, I thank you for joining us.